Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. Today I have Matt Busalacci and Mo Fredericks here, going to talk about University of Iowa, a Toastmasters program, first in the nation, and a bunch of the things that they're doing. There's some great leaders here in my state, so welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast.
Thank you for having us, Tony. We're excited to be here.
All right, well, let's get a little background on both of you guys. Mo, do you want to start it off? How did you get interested in pharmacy? Why Iowa? And how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. Why I chose pharmacy, Tony, it's kind of a sensitive situation, but I think it's my strong why that drives me. And when I was about 17 years old, I remember my mom getting a phone call from my uncle back home in South Africa. And she was like, well, she started crying on the phone in our one-bedroom apartment back home in San Diego. And she dropped the phone, went to the bathroom, started crying, picked up the phone, got on with my uncle and asked what just happened. And he said that my cousin passed away. Now, I didn't know the situation, what was going on. And he said that, well, there were some pills next to her counter. We don't know if she overdosed. We don't know what happened. Call back 2 days later, and he says that the doctor prescribed the wrong medication. The pharmacist dispensed it. My cousin had an adverse reaction, and it was fatal.
Oh, no.
And I told myself, I was like, I don't want anyone to go through what my mom and I went through at that moment in time. So drug safety, patient safety, taking care of my patients, making sure they're well off with their medications, they're educated on how to take them. That's what drove me into pharmacy, and that's why I chose pharmacy to begin with.
Now, what about coming into Iowa? I lived in Baltimore, and there were a lot of Californians that were going to law school, pharmacy school on the East Coast, but you stopped in the middle. And you said, all right, well, I'm not going over flyover country. I'm going to plant in flyover country. So tell me a little bit about what made you pick the Midwest.
So I had a few colleagues from UCSD, the University of California, San Diego, that came out here for med school. And also one of the kids my mom was teaching at the time, her dad, who was close to me, he came out here for pharmacy school. So he graduated about 3 years ago, and he recommended the program. He said, the values in Iowa and in the Midwest are extremely nice people, family-orientated. They're very innovative with pharmacy, and they have great values when it comes to patient care and how they deal with pharmacy as a whole. So I was kind of sold on that, the family values, the innovation, and just having the resources to allow us to be the best practitioners. So I saw that as an opportunity. And when I was applying, my mom says it all the time, too, because she saw me go through that process of the application process. She was like, at Iowa, they treated me like I was the only candidate applying. Everything they did, every communication through email, I felt like I was the only one, and they made you feel special. And that's what's unique about our program is that it treats the individual as a whole and not just as a GPA or a number or all those different statistics that are out there.
So yeah, practice what you preach. It sounds like they treat their students the way they treat their patients, and that really must resonate with you guys. So Matt, what about you? Tell me a little bit about your journey. Where did it start, and how did you end up in Iowa City?
Yep, exactly. So I grew up just outside Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I shadowed a family pharmacist, or family friend that was a pharmacist in a hospital, and he was in the ER at the time during that shift, and patient had coded. Basically, at the time, I don't remember what medication it was, but he knew of an injection to help, save the patient. And when he walked out of the room after the patient had coded, he said, that's happened probably about 10 times in the last 6 months where I've been in the room, knew of something to stabilize their heart rate and everything, and bring the patient back to life. And like that moment alone allowed me to experience what it's like to be a pharmacist, the impact you can have. And then from there, I applied for a job at CVS. Loved the community-based pharmacy. So that's kind of like why I in pharmacy, that direct patient care. And then from there I graduated from the University of Wisconsin with a degree in genetics. So that kind of aligned with pharmacy in the sense that pharmacogenomics is a huge front runner in the pharmacy world and the healthcare world, trying to personalize the medicine so that, like going back to Mo's story, those incidents don't happen. We're trying to prevent that. We're trying to optimize medications for patients. So
yeah, I just heard on the YFP podcast that some people use those kind of ancestry.coms as kind of a game, and then they, hey, where are you from? Cool, we're all from here and there. And they have no idea that they can use it to make their health much better and to actually maybe have some life-saving opportunities as well. So we can definitely get into genetics and things like that as well.
Yeah.
So, but let's first talk about this public speaking and the importance of it. When you're getting a job, if you have a Toastmasters come in there, it's so obvious because you've been under duress during, friendly duress. Let's leave it at that. So friendly duress in the Toastmasters club. It's not, here we go. So tell me a little bit about Toastmasters, why you chose that as your vehicle, and how public speaking has impacted both of you guys, maybe one at a time.
For me, it was, the value that Mo sold me on. Because it's not just public speaking. A lot of people think that Toastmasters is just getting in front of people and public speaking, but it's more than that. It's being able to communicate, for us as pharmacists, our ideas to patients in an effective way. When we give a speech within Toastmasters or, in front of people in our class, it's one thing if we know the information, but it's another thing if our audience knows what we're saying. So that effective feedback that we get within the Toastmasters organization and we give to one another has been very valuable.
What about you, Mo?
So for me, Tony, it goes back to when I was back in South Africa. I was sitting down at my cousin's house with my family members, and they have the celebration after we're done fasting. And everyone has to give a speech, and this was the first time I've been to that event where I had to give a speech, and I was like, I do not talk in front of people. I'm sorry. And even if it's my own family, which was kind of weird at the time, thinking about it. So that fear set in, and as I started growing, I was introduced to an individual back in San Diego by the name of Justin Orr. He was one of my mentors. He's a former U.S. Olympian. He now runs his own personal training business. And when I started working for him during a gap year between my undergrad and pharmacy school, he required me to go to all these business meetings and talk to business individuals and network. And for me, I'm like, I don't even know how to talk to my family at a gathering. You want me to talk to business individuals? Now, this is ridiculous. So he introduced me to Toastmasters, and he said, come to Toastmasters, fun environment. You're going to learn how to communicate. You're going to get rid of this fear, and you're going to grow yourself as a leader. So he brought me to one of the meetings. I saw the environment. I saw what it was about. I bought into the vision. I bought into the mission. And when I came to Iowa to pharmacy school, I saw the same fear I had when I was giving a speech in front of my family that my classmates had in front of the class. And I said, I can't let them live like that. There needs to be an outlet, and I have a vehicle, which is Toastmasters. Let's bring it to the college and turn this into something viable where students can actually get outside their comfort zones in a fun environment. They can grow themselves as speakers, communicators, as well as leaders.
Yeah, I know that there's kind of a groan when you hear, okay, we're going to have everyone do a presentation, or worse, you have the multi-person presentation where they try to be efficient and they divide it into thirds. So you have like 3 different shows with the same topic, and you're like, well, like they said, because I didn't actually talk to them while we were doing this together, we all did it individually and presented as a group. So it becomes this kind of disaster in the classroom for not only them, but also for the poor audience. But when I go to Toastmasters, especially competitions are fun. I just see it's just not only are they energized, but the crowd is energized and they're really excited and those types of things. But I guess what I've heard over and over again that, the new schools are where you start clubs and things like that, but I don't think it has to be that way. Iowa's been around for a long time. Tell me how you start a club that in a school that's been established for so long, and how the school has helped you or facilitated making Toastmasters a part of really your week to week.
So it was a lengthy process, Tony, and there were different steps we had to take. At first, I reached out to one of my colleagues who I worked with at UIHC. Her name is Trang Dang, and she's currently also doing her informatics degree, and she's a P4 now. And I said, hey, Trang, let's start this organization that allows us to get outside our comfort zones, gain communication, and speak. Now, Toastmasters themselves, all you need is 20 members, a chartering fee, and you can go ahead and charter and you can have your club. But there were other stipulations and criteria we had to meet through the university and the college, which I didn't know about at the time. So Trang sat me down. She said, this is the steps we have to take. So we had to go to the coordinator of organizations at the university level, write a bunch of bylaws for our organization, because now we're both a club and an organization, an organization at the college, a club at the Toastmasters level. And when she sat us down, there were 5 of us at the time: myself, Ahmed, Trang, Matt, Margie, 7, Beth, and Shirley. So those were like the 7 founders of our Toastmasters club with our professor Vernon Duba. So we sat down, wrote our bylaws, sent that in. Then after that, we had to get approval by the college. So the Student Leadership Council had to vote us in. And it was a very touchy situation because there were already 15 organizations. They said no more organizations are allowed at the College of Pharmacy. And literally, we go into that meeting, we're pitching a new organization to become number 16 on the list when they said no more. And we gave a vulnerable speech that showed the value of what we were going to bring to the college. And I walked out the room. A few of us walked out the room because they were voting. And they voted us in after that speech. They saw the value in it. And we got started over there. About 6 months later, we got 20 members, signed our contracts, chartered our first club that way.
Wow, it's kind of interesting that you learn the logos, pathos, ethos, and the rhetorical ways to persuade and have persuasive speeches. And the first speech that you have to make is a persuasive speech to actually allow the club to be a club. So talk about making everything efficient, making everything work out the right way. That's pretty cool. Well, I have heard about these dual degrees, and the traditional are the PharmD MBA or the PharmD MPH, so public health, business administration. One brave soul from time to time does a JD as well, and they usually take an extra year. But I'm not familiar with the Masters of Health Informatics. Can you tell me a little bit about the requirements for the degree? How do you get that degree if you need sleep? It sounds like you're doing all these clubs, all these other things. How do you get this degree in between classes, work, all your responsibilities? So let's start with what the degree is about, and then how do you fit it in?
Yeah, sure. So the degree is about technology and how that affects pharmacy. So going back to what happened with my cousin, I feel that in today's time, if those technologies were there where you have machines to barcode scan, machines to autofill, and it takes pressure off like rushed times in a pharmacy, pharmacists will have more time to check things appropriately. They have double checks from scanners and technology. And not only that, with regards to the payer system and the way we get paid for our services, there's all this data we need to collect to show these payers like, hey, look, our interventions are reducing hospitalization. Our interventions are producing health outcomes, and we're documenting it. So the health informatics degree actually allows us to put all of these components together and mash it with pharmacy to say, hey, we're using technology in a positive manner. We're collecting all this data. Let's formalize it. Let's formulate it, visualize it, and say, this is what our interventions are doing. This is how we're keeping patients safe. And with regards to the requirements, there weren't many requirements per se. I did get an undergrad degree from UCSD, so it allows me to do my master's degree, which is the requirement at our college for any master's degree program. And
I remember Iowa has about 75% of their pharmacy students have a degree, if I remember right, something like that.
Yeah,
It's
correct.
a big number. Yeah. Okay.
So
And,
that's how I got into that there. And not only that, when my dad was around, he was actually a software engineer for IBM. That's why we came to America.
okay.
So it kind of, I think it might be in my blood that I went that way. I love technology. I love what it does for us, and if we utilize it correctly, of course. And I saw the opportunity. I applied for the degree. Don't get me wrong, it's a lot of work. You're right. You miss out on a lot of sleep at the moment, but you just got to make up for it later, right?
Okay, yeah. No, my dad is from Peru, and he came here, and he never did get an engineering degree, but he was basically a computer engineer and worked for Control Data for a very long time, which was a large mainframe company out in Minneapolis. But my mom's a programmer, or was a programmer for Geico for over 50 years, and so I've got kind of that techie-ness in the blood, and so that's why I just gravitate towards these kinds of things. And so many people don't understand the importance of technology and how it kind of fits in. But can you or Matt explain what the word informatics means? Because I feel like that's where some people are lost. Why don't they just call it the Master of Health Computers or technology?
So informatics is a process of collecting data, so data collection through all these different systems that we have, turning it into knowledge, which is seeing all the different trends and patterns that are occurring, and then using wisdom later on to say, hey, this happened over here. Now let's go ahead and implement this in another area and prevent any diseases from occurring from a pharmacy standpoint, and implement in these other areas that might not have these resources. So for example, in my classes, what I learned, to give a good example on what this means, our professor said, just say you have a population and you collect all this data and they have a certain disease state, and it's in America and it's a certain population from Africa. Now you know that you collected that data, you have this knowledge, you can see the patterns in their genetic code, like what Matt would be doing. Mm-hmm. Now when we need to treat them overseas and they need help and they have an epidemic, now we have that knowledge and we have the wisdom to say, okay, fine, these individuals had this issue, this disease state, we know how to treat it, we have the data to prove it, we have the knowledge to see that what it does. Now we can use our wisdom to go to Africa and implement this system and successfully allow this epidemic to not occur or further worsen.
Okay. And then Matt, what's your role or what's your, I don't want to call it specialty, but what's your specific interest in the health informatics?
So I'm not currently in the informatics program right now myself, but I've definitely learned a lot from Mo, basically how we can apply the data that we're in front of, right? So yeah, I've definitely learned a lot from him. He's helped bring numerous things to Healthcare Business Leadership Program from the informatics side of things. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Well, explain. Let's start with that then. What is the Healthcare Business Leadership Program? Is it the Healthcare Business Entrepreneurship Program, or are you trying to lead large organizations, small organizations, help with solopreneurs? What exactly? I'm just saying the word. You've got three of the biggest words you could probably put on Google. Healthcare Business Leadership. So I'm just saying, how do you, what is that niche that you guys are working in with Healthcare Business Leadership?
Yep. So basically what we did, and Mo and a team of students here at the college looked at our curriculum, and this all actually stemmed back from the dean talking to previous students, and I was asking, what is missing from the program? What would you like to have seen done differently? And he would say time and time again that the students that he would talk to would say business, something in business. And as we've come along, with this process of implementing this program, it's been, how can we implement business within our pharmacy careers? Because business is already within it. It's just almost how do we, take that, informatic data that we have about business with our patients and optimize outcomes. So that's kind of where the program is at. It's more of a pharmacy business kind of program where we're really taking a look at the bigger picture of what a business means, and not just a particular business, but the skills that are needed to help optimize outcomes for patients.
Okay, well, is this program one of the 16 organizations, or was it supposed to be 17th and you call it a program so you don't have to call it an organization? Can you explain kind of how it fits in to students? Like, where would a P1 learn about it? P2, P3, P4? Is there development through it? How does that work exactly?
Sure, I'll take this one, Tony. And so the program was actually an idea from the dean at the College of Pharmacy, Dean Latender. He has what he created 11 years ago called the Dean's Executive Leadership Board. So some of the top pharmacists in the nation, business individuals, are on that board, and they kind of guide how we get educated in our system and what's out there that needs to shift the profession where it needs to go. So one of the members on his team named George Hiller, who is a consultant for Pepsi Cola, he said that, well, I think your kids need business skills because pharmacy is a business. They're not given these skills. And if they're going to move to provider status and shift from a fee-for-service to a value-based system, now they need to have the skills to understand how to do that. So the dean proposed the idea to us. 5 students came in a room, 7 a.m. on a winter morning. It was so cold. I didn't even know what I was doing there. And they proposed this idea from the College of Business. So we actually partnered with the College of Business right now. Their professors teach us our courses. And they gave us the idea. They said, here you go. We want it to be student run. We'll support you. Go with it. So we built up awareness about the program. We had Sam Enderig, who has been on your podcast before.
Yep.
As a guest speaker. We did a little video at the Midwest Pharmacy Expo with him to promote the program. Mm-hmm. We had 60 students show up on a Saturday morning, all suited up. Oh. And they after that there for our first session about database management. So we had a business professor also named Sam Burer, who taught us about database management from a business standpoint. And then Sam came in and talked about how he implements that through DocStation. After that event, that was a pilot event, we had application process, and the College of Medicine actually has the program right now. So we took from their criteria on how to build ours, but put our spin to it. So now we have application processes. We actually have a hiring process as well for executive positions. We're trying to run it like an actual business program. So it's not one of the 17 organizations. It's a program.
Okay.
So we just negotiated with our dean to have it be an Excels award. So now we're being awarded for this program. We're getting a certificate signed by our dean, Dean Latender, Dean Gardiel from the business school. And we're also getting cords at graduation. So we just took an idea that the dean and his executive leadership team had, turned it into a reality where now students and even practitioners who are in the working field, like we had Dr. Kelly Kent from Towncrest Pharmacy come over to one of our modules, and she participated. So students pay $120 for 6 modules, get their certificate, get their award. And pharmacists can actually, I think for a fee of $50 to $100, they can come into any module they want and get the knowledge they need to help progress their business through business skills.
Cool. You'll have to give me that link.
Definitely.
So generally, there's a required number of APPEs that you have to do based on the accreditation criteria. You guys have this business role going. How do you keep that business role going in your APPE year? I just got the returns on who I'm going to have for my APPEs next year as a preceptor. But how would a student who's business-minded set up their rotations to kind of balance clinical and still maintain an entrepreneurial or business focus?
I think because we have our events on Saturdays, we try and coordinate it where it doesn't conflict with anyone's schedule. And because right now we're still in the process of constructing the entire curriculum as how we want it to fit the needs of the students, I feel that going into their second year, they can complete the program into their third year. So for the current students who will be completing the program next semester or the semester after during their APPEs, they'll have the opportunity to complete it, so it doesn't conflict with any residence or rotation schedule unless they're doing it out of country or out of state at that moment in time. So we have a criteria of you need to finish 5 out of 6 modules, so they're able to miss one module. As long as they're able to attend on a Saturday, I think the program itself caters to their needs.
And could you tell me what appies you guys are doing, or maybe in general how you chose your appies to maintain your kind of business focus? So are you doing administrative rotations, or what rotations are you guys picking to keep the business thing going? Because you're going to have graduated, right? Your P3 year, isn't that right?
No? Right.
So we'll actually, for the business program, myself, Matt, and the P3s will graduate next semester during our P4 year. And we'll start rotations in May. So we'll be done with that there. And then the onboarding class will come in, which are P1s and P2s at that point in time. Or sorry, the incoming P2s, incoming P3s will start the new cycle of the business program. So we have 40 spots, and there's about 12 or 15 of the current P3s on that in those spots. So when we leave next semester and we graduate from this program, then the next class will come in at that point. So we'll be able to finish our program effectively and within time.
Okay. And what actual rotations, though, are you guys looking at in terms of like the P4 year?
Yep. So for me, I don't have a ton of direct business not residency, but APPEs for me, because I like I said, I got into pharmacy with the patient care side of things. So I think, I have a rotation out in Arizona with CVS at a managed healthcare facility out there in Phoenix. I have some of the home health. I have a home health rotation in Madison. So I think a lot of the things that we're learning in the business program will be easily applicable to the rotations I'm doing, whether it's a direct business rotation itself or if it's a community-based pharmacy that can pull those business skills that I've learned before.
Okay. And a PGY1 is usually focused on patient care, but at the same time, hospitals want to save money. They want to have initiatives that are business-minded and things like that. What kind of do you have an idea of what you guys are thinking after your P4 year, or is it too soon?
There's a lot of options out there, Tony. I always say pharmacy is like your favorite buffet with all your favorite foods, and you just need to make a decision and choose what you want to eat first and then move on to the next plate, right?
That is a great analogy. That is a true Toastmaster, putting the visual up there and hitting with something very memorable. Yeah.
But yeah, with regards to my rotations, I have a few management rotations. I'm doing about 3 of them. I'm at CVS in San Diego, healthcare leadership as well. Over at UIHC, I have one's an informatics rotation, but I'm with the manager of informatics department of pharmacy. And then my first rotation in May is with ambulatory care manager as well. And the rest of them are mainly community rotations.
Okay.
So I'll have the ability to implement or probably utilize the skills I've learned from the business program. And when I'm done, I'm looking to go into business and informatics, maybe use the informatics portion to help the business more than drive with the informatics part of it.
Okay. What about you, Matt?
Yep. And for me, like I said, I've been with CVS now for about 5 years or so. I plan to stay with them at least, part-time, if not full-time, but especially for what I want to do right after school, I'm looking to do a fellowship in pharmacogenomics, or I've even heard of Masters of Pharmacogenomics programs. So either one of those, I'm still hashing out the details of which one I want to do and which one would benefit me most. But ideally, I'd like to do research in that area and still maintain the clinical side of pharmacy and all the benefits that come with patient care.
Awesome. Well, I've asked you guys a lot of questions. Last things you want to say, or any shout outs to anyone? Start with Mo.
Shout outs to you, Tony. This is awesome, man. You always bring on. We're honored to be on here. You've had some great people on this podcast, Mike Case Hub and
Ahmed,
who is also part of this Toastmasters, starting that up, who did a great job, and now he has his own podcast thanks to you.
Yeah.
So
he's a go-getter.
Shout out to our dean. He really sets us up for success when it comes to starting the Toastmasters organization and all the endeavors that we do. He really supports us in all that we do, as well as all the faculty and his team at the College of Pharmacy and just the Iowa pharmacy family. They really take care of us. We're really like one. They say pharmacy is a small world, but we just one big family, right? So
absolutely. Yeah.
So shout out to all the Iowa pharmacy networks that we have over here. They really support us in doing what we do, and they bring great value to us.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to second that, everything he said about, the people that have impacted our pharmacy careers at such an early stage of our careers. But the one thing I'd like to say, especially, was about Dean Latender. At all the events that he has, with the students and with families and stuff, he always has this quote that he says, and it's, "If not for the students, why are we here?" And that's just the environment that they create here at the University of Iowa College of Pharmacy, that it has been truly beneficial to get the most out of our program and impact a lot of people.
Yeah, if you've ever talked one-on-one with him, he'll talk to you, and then once that one-on-one starts, he is locked onto what you are saying. I don't know if you've experienced that, but it was. Oh, yeah. It is I've never had anyone pay attention to me that way. And at first it was kind of intimidating, but then I took it as a model as, wow, I'm really just waiting to see what I should say next rather than what he does, which is I'm really, really, really trying to understand what you need and how I can help you. And I think that's why they, took him on for, I think the way that it works is you keep a dean on like you keep on a star NFL player. We got you on for another 5 years, and I don't think the salary compares, but but I think they basically put the franchise tag on him and said, "You're going to stay here. You're doing such a great job." So props to him as well. So thanks so much, guys, for being on the Pharmacy Leaders podcast, and I definitely wish you well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.